Hi, welcome back, my dear students. So in this lecture, I'm just going to show you a couple different things. I want to show you, give you a summary how Node works with code, and show you something about the global scope, which is super important for you to understand now before we start, with more knowledge about Node. Okay, so get ready. So let's start. So I have my IDE open here, and I created a folder called Node. Okay, I want to show you something with, a little different way that Node and the browser behaves when it comes to variables, okay, and the global scope. So let's create a file here. I'm gonna call this index.html, and you know what? As a matter of fact, let's just call it global.html, and I'm gonna create another one. I don't know if I'm gonna need both, but let's just create it. Global.js and global.html, okay? In global.html, I'm just gonna put some boilerplate. And I'm gonna make sure that these files are available to you. So make sure that you check the lecture before this one. And let's just put this here. Hello. Let's open this in the browser and let's see what we get. All right, I got it right here. Let's just put this in a different window somewhere. All right. Let's look at the console real quick here. So let me show you this. So those of you that don't know, the browser has a object, a global object that everything gets added to. Not everything, but variables. Every variable that you declare like this, let's say for example, I'm just gonna do this one, gets added to the window object. Okay, if you don't know what just happened here, I just define a variable, apply some type of value to it. I went over here and wrote a variable name, displayed the value, and I went and displayed the value again with window.name, which is basically the same thing. You see, every time I wrote name by itself, the browser knows that I meant the the, the global name. Okay, but if I declare a variable like this, let house, okay, and I put my house, and I display that, you can see it. But if I do this window.house, I get undefined because let is part of the ES6 specification. Okay, and ES6 is just a new JavaScript version. Okay, after of course JavaScript 2015. Okay, or JavaScript 5. So after JavaScript 6, this is this new keyword called let. If you don't know about that, I have a course on ES6, which is free by the way, with which will let you know some of the new syntax that we got, some of the new functionalities. So this global object here, every variable that we declare like this, I want you to have that in your mind, gets added to this window object. Okay, keep that in your mind. Let me show you how Node works. Okay, so in Node, there's a lot of things that you're gonna see, for example, like this console.log, that is part of the global object. Okay, now remember that we already installed Node in our computer, so we can say Node and we can execute files using Node, and Node is always going to expect a JavaScript file, so we don't even need to do the .js extension here. So enter, and you can see that we get hello from Node. And of course, we're not going to see this in the browser because we're not using the browser, right? We're using our console, our command prompt, our terminal, whatever you want to call it, to execute Node. And Node is just spilling it right back at us, right? Spitting it back. So that is the same thing as saying global.console in Node. If I do it again, Node global, enter, we get the same thing back. Okay, so this global object is the same thing as the window object in the browser for Node, right? So now the only difference, one of the differences, there's a couple differences, but one of the main differences here is that Node does not treat variables the same way the window object does. Okay, for example, we know that if we declare a variable like this in the window object, it gets added to it, right? I mean, in the browser. So that is part of the window, that name or the window object in the browser. But Node doesn't see it like that. Node does not add this to the window object, or it does not add it to the global object. Okay, so in Node you cannot come here and say, okay, this is added to the global object. You cannot do that. So if I try doing that, I get undefined because Node does not declare variables or does not add variables to the global object, which is this one, to its global object. But what it does is that every file that you create, every file that is separate in Node.js is its own module. So in order for us to use a variable from another file, we need to import it. So we need to actually export it from the file that we are using it, from the file that we have it, and import it from the file that we want to use it in. Okay, so if I wanted to use this, I would need either to add it to a global, okay, object, or export it out and import it. And we're gonna learn about that later on, okay? But right now you don't need to learn about this. I just want you guys to know about it. Now, another thing that I want you guys to understand is that every functionality, every feature that JavaScript has available to us in the browser, we have it available in Node. Okay, now the only difference is that we have extra stuff that we can use in JavaScript. Okay, and that's what Node is all about, right? So for example, let me show you that we can access all, simple or even really advanced JavaScript functionalities. So let's say, for example, I want to do something to this name up there, and let me see if I remember. There we go. That function is so many functions, it's hard to actually remember. So if I come here and I execute that, we get all uppercase the value, right? So this is a JavaScript functionality, and I'm able to execute it using Node. Okay, so we have everything available that JavaScript has, but with extra stuff. Let me show you. For example, we also have, and let me show you, this is new syntax for including strings and variables together using the new JavaScript syntax, ES6, right? So let me just make sure that my IDE is ready for it. Language, come back here, make sure that it's using ECMAScript 6, apply, and now that the red underline is going to be out. So I'm using the tildes here, the little, it looks like quotes, but they're under the escape key. And now if I want to use that, I can put a dollar symbol and two curly brackets, and I can just say new name. Okay, if I execute this, now I can say new name variable is, so I can write strings and variable together. Okay, as you can see right here. So we have that available. We don't have to use this, of course, that's assumed automatically. And every time you get stuck in Node, in the Node command prompt like this, just Control C and Control C again to get out, okay? Because some of you might get stuck in there and not know how to get out. All right, let me show you some of the Node core functionalities. For example, let's talk about doing something with files, okay? Let's do this. Let's actually display the directory that we're on, okay? Underscore underscore their name, and watch this. Let's execute this again here. Node global, enter, and look at this. it executed my whole path until the directory that that path is located on. So if I do the same here, but I do the file name, watch this. You see now that I get the file name. Now, keep in mind that this is also doing a break line for us, right? I mean, it's not putting everything in one line. Look at that. We're getting in one line, two line, and everything. You see, Node has everything available plus extra stuff, which is great. In JavaScript, we don't have the ability to actually play around with files like this. Okay? We can do a lot more than these guys. Okay? All right. So there's also modules that we can kind of import. All right. So in Node, we have this require function, okay, that helps us bring modules. And now these modules, remember that they are built in Node. They are available to us like the path module. Okay. Now this is of course giving me an underline because I don't have the assistance, coding assistance in my IDE. So if I can go to, let me see if I can just find it like that. And global assistant ETF right here is enabling the library. And that those, this is for those of you that are using Node. It's just a really cool stuff to get the global assistance there, so you don't have all those underlying errors there. So now I can, of course, assign this to some type of variable here and use it. So now if I want to use it, let's say here, I can say, well, I want to use that, but I want to use something like the base name method here. Base name. And now what that's going to do, a base name basically is like a regular expression that is going to check the whole file, okay, and it's going to pluck everything after the dot. That's basically what it's going to do. So I'm going to execute that again now, no global, and you can see here that it says global.js. Okay? So as you can see here, we are able to play around with a lot of JavaScript functionality, all the JavaScript functionalities, and at the same time, we're able to manipulate files, okay? And this is just the beginning, the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of different things that we can do with Node, and I'm gonna show you in the later lectures. You're gonna enjoy it. Thank you so much for watching this lecture. I hope I open up your mind a little bit and show you the possibilities with Node. In the next lectures, you're gonna fall in love with Node and some other things that we are going to be doing. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next lectures.